All right, everyone. That's back for another interview. I haven't been doing these lately. I have spent the past month doing my Nexus Open tournament, which went really well, but I've sort of focused on that this past month. So I'll be getting back into doing some bat reps and doing some content as well. Although, right now, got some vacation with the family, but still working on a few things going on. Just to keep up a heads up, I am going to be doing an Age of Fantasy Regiments tournament. That seems to be something that my community asked for. So that's going to be coming up pretty soon. But for now, let's just have some fun. Let's talk about games. And with that, I've got you've heard me. I've had him before. Great guy, Boz from the Any Witch Wargame YouTube channel. Boz, man, how you doing?
Yeah, hi Dan, how you doing? I'm doing all right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to chatting about some games. Always happy to talk about games.
Yes, yes. We were talking before we started this interview about how, life happens and that's just sort of part of it, and how games are they're definitely a way for us to what's the word? Like we find some it helps us, I guess, in life, to sort of turn to something that there's definitely a therapeutic quality to games.
Yeah, and the escapism is something I find really important as well. I can put whatever is going on in my actual life down and spend half an hour or an hour, you know, playing as a sci-fi hero or villain, as the case may be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I think that's really great. What there is so we're gonna so this is sort of an off the cuff. You guys already know Boz. But I think that we're just gonna try to talk about maybe the state of the hobby and what's going on, and then maybe cover some games that we've been really getting into. Um, but for now, so just bird's eye view, Boz. What do you when you sort of look at wargaming as a hobby, just overall, anything that just sort of jumps out to you that you just sort of feel is very, very worth sort of talking about? And
Well, I think in the last and it's been building in the last kind of 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, wargaming as a hobby is becoming more mainstream.
Mhm.
And, kind of everybody knows somebody who either plays or is interested in playing or knows about it. I don't think there'd be many people who have more than one degree of separation from knowing what wargaming actually is. And I think we're kind of entering a bit of a renaissance at the moment where this big corporation that's dominated for so long is being not directly challenged, I suppose, but there's new competition in the arena that's independent, that's valid, and that are making really, really good games.
Yeah, yeah. Um, One thing that I have noticed, I'll see what you think about this, Boz. So I think the gaming hobby was going well before COVID. And what I've sort of noticed is that after COVID, I mean, there was a big drop off, right? And I feel from at least around my community, it's almost like COVID because I know that during COVID, a lot of people actually, I think, started to find out about the hobby. They were sort of stuck in there. So all of a sudden now, you got these people who were maybe painting their miniatures or like online a little more, learning about this stuff. Because that was actually a thing. GW said that that was a boon for them. When all of a sudden you got these people buying models and stuck in, and they're painting stuff. But the playing side of the hobby, from at least from my perspective, went way down. But now, after a few years, all that's coming out, it's almost like there is this revival. It's like all of a sudden we have all these people with these painted armies. And now it's like, oh, wait, we can play again. And all of a sudden now I'm seeing like wargaming just spring up, right? Because, the COVID and like it seems to now just be building. So have you noticed something similar? What did you kind of think about the pandemic? Because we have a few years now to sort of see,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, we've got a bit of distance now, don't we? So I think you're right, and I think it's quite a natural reaction. All of a sudden, everybody had all this extra time on their hands that they had to spend inside. And I guess for some, maybe it was something they'd wanted to try. and kept putting off because I didn't have the time. And for some, it was just a way to be doing something. I'm going to sit here, I'm going to paint. For me, um, it was very much a time to dive back into solo gaming, which is
Mm.
kind of one of my jams and has been ever since. I left high school and had to kind of find ways to keep playing. But yeah, I think there's definitely a, quite a few companies who've benefited directly from that pandemic time and used it as a springboard for their product and for their games and for kind of wargaming in general. Certainly, GW benefited from it, and as we all know, GW is the gateway. It's the gateway drug. Once you've played a Games Workshop game and decided that it might not be quite for you, and you start exploring what the other billion war games there are out there, that's certainly how I got into the wider field of wargaming, and I know I'm not the only one.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting too to talk about GW because now I don't want to be alarmed because it seems like every day, Boz, some channels like GW is gonna go bankrupt or something. I mean, it's probably not it, but it does
Yeah, I don't
feel,
I don't see that happening somehow.
yeah, but it really does start to feel that there is some real competition. But rather than it being, because the big company that I remember it was War Machine. That was, I'd never seen anything like that. Oh, back whenever War Machine really gave. But now it seems that it's GW's hold on wargaming is more of a death by a thousand cuts, which a whole bunch of smaller people just, and it's sort of like getting their little piece of a pie, right? What do you think has sort of attributed to that? Why do you like? Where do you see? I haven't really seen anywhere else. Correct me if I'm wrong, boss. Where there's so much creativity happening right now in gaming.
So Games Workshop have kind of evolved this culture around them where you cannot bring any models into a store to play or a tournament to play that aren't their models. You cannot even use bits for a kit bash that aren't from their sprues and things like that. They're very, very notoriously hard on independent creators doing
Mhm.
anything with their IP. So fan made video projects, fan made stories, there's fan made lore channels out on YouTube that are very much aware that at any time the hammer could come down and go, you know what, it's actually an infringement of our IP, what you're doing, you're gonna have to stop that. So I think that really contributes to this overall culture of Games Workshop being the big overarching mega corporation, and it allows these independents to come up and be the other.
Mhm.
You've got places like Snarling Badger Studios, you've got Nordic Weasel Games, you've got One Page Rules, and they're not like that. They're inclusive rather than exclusive. And I think that's really where the push comes from. People are after inclusive gaming experiences rather than exclusive.
Yeah, I think that's, and I think what you use, I think a great term that you use is exclusive. Games Workshop, they've really sort have said, especially when you look at their marketing strategy, like they aren't interested in selling to everyone anymore. Every one
No.
of their sales, they basically, and they use it for FOMO, people call it FOMO, but it's true, where they limit all the production, right? It's almost like they're a luxury. We think about like diamonds are a great example of that, right? I mean, like diamonds are uh, a lot less scarce than people realize. It's controlled by,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's one of the most common minerals on the planet, and the industry have created this illusion of scarcity. And yeah, Games Workshop definitely does the same. They have the diamond model for sure, and they seem more and more interested in just churning through new players, get them in, get them to buy as much as possible, empty their wallets, then move on to the next round of new players. And
Mhm.
I know a lot of older players who are GW shills who have been loyal customers for their entire wargaming lives are finding themselves kind of on the outside and not really a part of the decision making process in terms of, oh, we need to look after our veteran players.
Yeah, it's exactly. And I would say the veteran players who they do cater to are the whales. Like,
Yes,
there's
absolutely.
I consider us, me and you, Boz, I would say we're veteran Games Workshop. We played those games for, decades. But
Yeah, I'm going on 25 years.
yeah, but we aren't the whales,
Oh
So
no.
so
No, I need a few extras. I need a few extra zeros on my paycheck
yes.
first, please.
So, but I think that that's interesting that because GW has really, they have an exclusive model. It's a model that says you must not just be wholeheartedly sold on our rules, you must also have a bank account that is X in value, or you literally cannot play our games. You just can't.
Yeah, and when you're talking about skirmish games, which we've both kind of mentioned, very much a focus at the moment. Their skirmish game Kill Team is it's on like it's a seasonal game, so they're rotating Kill Team rosters in and out as time passes. So you can spend 18 months with your kill team, building them, painting them, playing with them, getting to know them, and then in 18 months' time or whatever their time frame is, that's going to be invalid in the tournament scene, and you're going to have to start over with something else. And I think that's something that I always really intensely disliked about Magic the Gathering was
Mm,
that I could spend all this money building up a lovely deck and playing with it and getting to know it, and then all of a sudden it's just not valid in that tournament scene anymore. Obviously, casual gamers can do what they want.
exactly, exactly. Um, so that kind of, see, it kind of brings into it. So we would say that we have all these companies that are sort of coming in there and getting, is it the majority of gamers, or is it is casual, or is non-GW, is that becoming a segment to rival GW yet? Like, if you just would ballpark it, what would you say the percent of people who play war games that aren't GW versus?
Okay, okay, so we're talking about players versus sales, correct?
That's
Because
right.
those are
Play
two.
that
Those are two. Yeah,
very different
those are two
things.
vastly different figures.
That's right.
Um, I don't know. The thing is, we operate within a bit of an echo chamber because we're not primarily GW players. A lot of the people in our community are not primarily GW players, and that can give us a skewed view. But without putting a number on it, I'd say that there's got to be approaching some sort of balance.
Hmm.
Given all the new kids who pick up a Space Marine and buy and get their parents to buy them a whole bunch of stuff, versus the people who stay in wargaming and keep on playing, I'm gonna have to assume at this point it's nearing some sort of balance.
Yeah, maybe I think that in a balance, I think that we could be conservative and say 30%. And when I
I
mean
think that'd be a very
players,
conservative,
I
yeah,
think
for
that
sure.
you would, again, we're calculating, and we say that because this isn't War Machine. This is tons of these games that you have all these isolated communities, but they all sort of add up to, and because we got to realize that the amount of war games out there, and all these different communities aren't necessarily sharing their data with us, right?
Oh
And
yeah,
so, and I would say that 30 to 50% also, there's a lot of Games Workshop players who play other games. I mean, let's not, there's um a lot of them don't because they can't, but I know a lot of casual Games Workshop guys who aren't their tournaments, who take their war take I'm a guy. I take my Games Workshop models and I play other games with it. Um that's what we mean, I think, boss, when we talk about, like you said, sales versus players. Um, because sometimes I think there is this view that non-GW gamers are like 5%, but we're probably not, right?
I don't think that figure's been true for a long time now.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Is so I'll pose another question to you, Boz. Is it this is something that we get, and I hear it from some of the older GW guys, older guys who tend to think that a game has to be big for it to be worth playing.
Yes.
Is is this fragmentation of the war game industry, is this a good thing or bad thing? You know?
Well, people are into what they're into. I'm not going to tell anybody else how to have fun, and I'd expect the same courtesy in return. For me, sometimes it would be fantastic to spend an entire day or an entire weekend with this sprawling game of, let's go back and play 6th edition 40k and let's play
Hmm.
4,000 points each. That's your weekend. And some people have the time for that, some people have the inclination for that, and that's fine, but I don't think that's true of a lot of gamers. A lot of gamers have an afternoon or an evening to play a game. So if they want to play a big, sprawling game, then they have to work out how they're going to do that. And I don't think if you were to look at it and look at people who say I only play big games, I only play 2000 plus points games of current edition 40k, I don't think they would be a very high percentage. I think realistically speaking, it's probably more a cut of who enjoys large scale war games and who enjoys skirmish games more than the other.
Mm.
And I don't know what those numbers would be, but for me, this year I've been leaning really super heavily into skirmish games because I'm mostly solo wargaming at the moment. It means that I have to print out and paint fewer minis, which is very good because that means that they actually get done, and I haven't got a pile of 100 Imperial Guard waiting around to be painted, which, historically has been the case for me before. And yeah, no shade on anyone who wants a big sprawling game, but I don't think the number of people who just do that is that big.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that even GW is probably with Kill Team and a lot of they're pushing a lot of these skirmish. I know there is, and forgive me if I miss, but it feels like there's half a dozen skirmish games that GW push out. Probably a dozen, I guess, when we think about Blood Bowl. I know they support Necromunda, Kill Team, and then there seems like
Hmm.
there's half a dozen, what's it called, Age of Sigmar related skirmish games where they have the spearheads and then
Yeah, and they've got
something.
Warcry, and yeah,
Yeah, I and so yeah, it is very fascinating to me with that. You
I
bring
guess
up
they're seeing a niche and leaning into it.
Yeah. You bring up an interesting idea about skirmish games. It seems that skirmish games are a boon to small development gaming studios, but
Yeah.
they're a terrible thing for GW, right? If we think about like they are probably, if I would just ballpark the production, the marketing, and the design, skirmish games aren't a good deal for GW, right? I think if they had their
No,
druthers,
they're a much better deal for us, the consumer.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, for GW to basically support and to have a person, I'm guess, pay. I mean, I know that some of these kill teams are still ridiculously priced, right?
True, but so many of them are one box.
Exactly, but it's still at the end of the day, it is still just one box, and the
Yeah,
difference
and there's only so much even GW can charge for one box.
exactly. And so that being the case, but when you get a small studio, let's just big Nordic Weasels, or I mean, we've got the Trench Crusade guys, we've got Bella, we got Corvus Belli, we've
Yeah,
got, I mean, just we could just start naming them all. That seems
yeah,
to work very well for their economics, right?
yeah, it does. And in terms of putting out a rule set and not having a miniatures line to go with it, I'm not entirely sure why that should be the case, other than that is what the player demand is for at the moment.
Mhm. And also, so for me, that's been, me, Buzz. We've been friends for years. I've always been a war games guy. I've always liked the bigger scale, but I've really got into skirmish games this year. And I cannot tell you how wonderful it feels to buy 10 models and to paint them, and to a decent for me, I'm a decent standard guy, and it's like, "Wow, I'm done." Like, "Oh
Yeah.
my goodness."
I can this is my force completed. I can
Yeah,
play with them now.
I can play with them, and I don't have to buy anything else. Like, I did that
Mm.
with Trench Crusade, where and I actually converted some models, okay, I guess, but when I was done, it's like, "Oh, I've got what I need. That's it.
Mhm.
Now I can just whenever I wanna play a Trench Crusade game, I can." And I did that with
It's like
Infinity.
now
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, you get your little force done. It's like, okay, cool. Now I can actually print and paint some decent terrain or scratch build some decent terrain because I'm not spending 80 hours on my minis. I can have a good looking board.
And what I've been doing is I have been saying, "Wait, now that I've got this, now I'm just going to go get some miniatures printed up for another game. And now I'm gonna
Mm.
be painting the miniatures, and now wait, oh wait, now I'm gonna be playing 2 games, and now it's 3 games. And now all of a sudden I've got these miniatures, that were very economical, right? So I bought a couple of them off eBay and painted them, and all of a sudden I've got the chance to dabble into 3 or 4 different games, and I really like that. Um, Historically,
And
I've always been sort of a one game guy. Um,
yeah, and I think you touched on something there. You can dabble. You haven't spent hundreds of dollars on the entry level. Like your entry point isn't hundreds of dollars. Your entry point might be 10, 20, $50. So you
mhm,
can dabble. You don't have to be a one game guy because you can afford to buy a couple of different rule sets and a couple of different skirmish forces and dabble, which is awesome.
yeah, yeah, and that works better for these smaller creators who all they really need is a whole bunch of people to be a dabbler in their game, and I would
Yeah.
guess that that supports them, you know? Um,
Well, if I can buy a set of rules for 10 or 20 or $30 or even 50 if it's a nice actual physical printed copy of rules, then that's great. I can spend that money and not go, all right, I have to play this game 20 times to just make it worth my kind of investment. I can just have it and read it and put it on the shelf and get it down when I want it.
mhm. And isn't it nice as well that because it's a lower investment, you don't need this big gaming group? You really
Yeah,
just need 2 or 3 people to play the game, and then,
yeah.
like, it's like, "Okay, well, I'll go play this other game with these other 2 or 3 or 10, if been 10 people or so." But I definitely have seen, and maybe this is probably new, this is like old hand, I'm sure, for you, Boss, but this is definitely new to me, that I'm seeing the big benefit of skirmish games.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, the biggest benefit of them is that when I'm solo wargaming, which I do most of the time, I don't have to remember an entire big war game's worth of rules and turns and things. I can really delve into the narrative of what I'm doing, and as you know, the narrative is absolutely my jam.
Mhm. Do How do you feel about these skirmish games, the lore? Have you is that so when you say the narrative, the skirmish games that you get into, Boz, is the lore very important, or is it sort of second, or do you develop your own lore?
The lore is important, the setting is important, and how much scope I have within that setting is also important. To kind of give that an example, some older Nordic Weasel games, like older editions of 5 Parsecs from Home, games like Starport Scum, they have a very loose setting, and they're pretty much designed for you to drop your own setting into it. So the focus is very much on this is the kind of spirit that we're going for. Here's some rules to play. Go out and have fun. Now I love those games because I can go, all right, cool. I'm going to mock up my own setting. I'm going to play it in the 40K setting. I'm going to play it in the Star Wars setting. I'm going to do this or that or whatever. And that can be just as good as some of these other games. Like I'm playing Death Wizards at the moment. I'm
Yeah, that looks
playing
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I'm playing Star Quest at the moment. I'm playing 5 Parsecs from Home, the modern edition at the moment, and they're quite realized settings. Some more than others, for sure. But yeah, that's very important to me as well because I can go, cool, I know where I am within that setting and I can play to that setting. So yeah, it's important. But as a narrative gamer, the story I'm telling is much more important to me than exactly where I'm telling it, if that makes sense.
Get you. I get you. Yeah, and I think that you bring up a good point. You've got, I think, 5 parsecs, which is it's sort of to me a little bit like one page rules, where it's a setting, but like the setting is, oh, I think it's okay. But I think Death Wizards is, am I correct? It feels like that is driven by the narrative. I haven't played it, but I've seen the artwork on it, and that seems to be a very much you're getting into the game because of the story that it tells.
That's right. So the game is a solo campaign system. It's got 10 or 11 steps, only one of which is fight a battle. So the rest of the
Mm.
campaign turn is um, paying off the debt for your ship, going out and finding a patron to give you missions, going out and buying supplies, getting ambushed by your enemies who you've messed with in the past who have come back to mess with you. Like the actual tabletop war game is only a percentage of what that game is, and that's kind of where it gets its narrative juiciness from.
Yeah, that's
Like
cool.
everything that happens before and after the actual war game informs why the war game unfolds the way that it does.
Yeah, I get a similar feel for two games that jump out, and they're both very different. Is so I got in the two of the games I've really enjoyed getting. One is Trench Crusade, which I think is just the world is very interesting. And then the other one is Infinity, which has been around for 2 decades. Just never
Yeah, long time.
found. Yeah, I just haven't found like a group. So I found a small group that plays. I got my miniatures, and then I started reading the lore, and like, whoa, this is really cool lore. Um, one of the things that I wanted to get your thought about, like that I like about Trench Crusade and Infinity both, they're very different games, but it feels like when I play the game, the mechanics match the world. Do you know what I mean? It's like Trench Crusade has this very wonky quality to it, where you can just the dice rolls are meant to sort of have a laugh, whereas Infinity, the mechanics really do feel like you are playing a modern game. They're very kind of crunchy and technical. Do you like how do you kind of feel about like the mechanics themselves make or like do you feel that's important, and is that in itself the creative space that we can kind of look at as far as games go, tying the mechanics to the narrative?
I think that's just good game design.
Mhm.
Your narrative, your kind of setting a narrative should inform the rules and vice versa. And yeah, I think that's just kind of basic game design. Like you say, with Trench Crusade, it feels wonky and wacky because it's supposed to. If you had those kinds of rules in a more polished game like Infinity, like you're talking about, which is very kind of, grid based, very, as you say, very, very modern, it wouldn't feel right.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's an aspect of good game design is getting your rules to match the game in that sort of way.
Well, and I say that because that's what I feel 40K has lost.
Yeah.
Like I played later editions, like some ninth, eighth, and 10th, and one of the last missions, like 10th edition, I played, it was something about how we were like kicking a ball. Like the objectives, you're like kicking it, and like it goes a certain direction, and then like the two. And when I saw that scenario, it was something about the objective, you get to knock it forward like a beach ball. I'm like, this is not a real battle. This isn't, you know what I mean? Like, there's like, why would why are Space Marines or something grabbing an objective and throwing it across the? I don't even know. And that's what I mean. I
Yeah.
feel like that 40K has a lot. Like, there's this disconnect where it felt like third, fourth, and fifth edition. it still felt like a game that you were it sort of it felt like the universe. Whereas now, and the cards now, where you draw a card, like, can you imagine armies every turn, every, like, what is it? A turn counts as like 10 minutes or so, or 5 minutes.
That yeah.
And like, oh, we have to do something else. We have to, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, and that's again just game design. Their game isn't very well designed anymore. They are the kind of original grimdarkers, and they used to do it really well.
Mhm.
And yeah, as you say, kicking around Space Marines and Tyranids getting together on a beach and kicking around a beach ball is exactly what comes to mind when I think about that mission. Like, what's the point? Give me a mission where I'm taking ground and holding it for the Emperor or for whomever, and I can get into it. And yeah, yeah. What really? I mean, I know this isn't really what we're talking about, but what really killed it for me was when they introduced things like command points and the ploys and just wacky, crazy stuff that it doesn't matter how well you plan for it, you're going to get gotcha'd, and I hate getting gotcha'd.
Mhm. Yeah, I think, yeah, exactly. It's just, and it's, to me, I remember maybe second edition wasn't the most balanced, but it had missions.
That's putting it mildly, but it was a
Yeah,
great
but
game.
second edition 40K, the missions were crazy. They were so
Yeah.
thematic. They weren't balanced, but I mean, one of them was a Tyranid mission where every turn they got to respawn their troops, but
Mhm.
all you had to do was had one person survive. So it probably wasn't balanced, but it's like, wow, that is such a Tyranid thing where it's like the nits just keep on coming on, and all you literally had to do is have one model survive at the end of the battle.
And I
Um,
love those kind of I love those kind of missions, those kind of last stand ones where it's obviously not balanced and doesn't make any pretense of it. In fact, it's like this is not balanced. You should do this game twice with each person playing
mhm,
as each side, so everyone gets a turn being, completely unbalanced. And yeah, this never-ending search for balance within their deeply flawed system is just crazy.
mhm. It and so just so for me and you, Boz, we're just sort of shooting the breeze, talking about whatever we want. But so one of the things that you did just bring up, which is, this has been happening a lot, and I've been hearing people talk about it, and it is the casual competitive. Is it a divide? Is it a something, or what? Where that seems to be something that I hear a lot in the war game community, which is that um, balance and fairness. And is it fun to be balanced, or is it unfun if you're more balanced? Or I don't know. This seems to be something that we as a community overall seem to be debating. Is struggling with too strong of a term? Or is it, where do you kind of see that?
So I'm not gonna tell anybody how to have fun. I say that a lot. It's one of my mantras. You do you, buddy, and that's fine. I don't think this competitive versus casual thing is as black and white as a lot of people try to make it out to be.
Mhm,
Where one person is all about balance and crunch because I need to make sure that it's completely balanced because I'm competitive and I always want to be winning and doing my best versus the casual who couldn't care less either way and just wants a fun game. I don't think there are too many people who fall into one or two or one or the other of those very black and white dichotomies. I think a lot of people are in the middle. I'm primarily a casual gamer. I have little interest in tournaments. I do enjoy winning. I do enjoy playing a good rule set that isn't completely out of balance unless that's the mission, i.e., Tyranids are trying to kill everybody and that's what the actual mission is. I don't think this us and them mentality does the community any good. I think there's a very good balance, if you will, between balance and not balance. I think there's a very good balance that can be struck between competitive gamers and casual gamers. For example, you make competitive lists out of one page rules army
Mhm.
lists, therefore, the express purpose of playing more balanced competitive games, which is great. People who want that can go and play with those lists and have more balanced competitive games. People who just like those lists better can go and use them and play whatever kind of game they want. Whereas people using the official lists can still go out and have fun with them. They can still go out and have a competitive time with them, not as balanced as or as competitive as the ones you've made because that's the point of them. What I'm saying is, I don't think that anyone's losing out on an experience by choosing one or the other, as long as they kind of manage their expectations. If you want the crunch, then go with a list that's built for crunch and competitive edge and have fun.
Yeah. Well, I'll get your thoughts. I'll give my thought. I'll let you kind of opine on what I've sort of noticed is I feel like this casual competitive debate or something is sort of coming out of it's sort of from a base of 40K, especially let's use 40K, where 40K is a game like, and I go back to this, you probably can speak to this too. Even we look at probably third, fourth, fifth edition 40K, it was a game that I think was well designed enough that you can both play it competitively and they had a lot of casual stuff. It was the same game, but you could sort of play that same game in sort of different ways. Um, where I look at 40K now, and I'd probably say the same thing with Old World, and I haven't played Age of Sigmar, where it seems like the game is so you can't play it's almost like you have to play it competitive. You just have to. There's no because of everything going on, y- and I think that to me is less of an issue. I would say this: a good game can both be played casually and competitively, right? Um, and still, because I
Sure.
would say this, like, yeah, that is something that because I think me and you, we're both in the one page rules. No, we would play the game. Um, and what I would say that I like about one page rules is that it's flexible. Yeah, you can play it pretty tight on a tournament, but you can also add a lot of wacky rules, right? You can add all this wacky actions and these. They have a lot of stuff you can add into one page rules to make it wacky. I mean, a lot of the missions in one page rules aren't balanced. They're just wacky.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's where I see the issue is you've got a game 40K now, which I feel is badly designed that you really can only play one way. And now what people are trying to do, they're trying to talk to Games Workshop and being like, make this game more casual or make this game more competitive. What do you kind of think about those thoughts?
From a game design point of view, I do not think it can be an easy thing to be a games designer at Games Workshop.
Mm.
You've got a very large um, customer base, a very vocal customer base, and a very divided customer base on that exact issue that you're just talking about. Um, it kind of brings up a question for me that I'm going to kind of answer your question with another question and put it back on you. And my question is, do you think that being competitive is more important to people now in kind of the modern wargaming era and the era of 10th edition than it was back in 3rd, 4th, 5th, maybe? And if so, do you think that might have something to do with a lot of the players who play those games are older now, i.e., you and I? And maybe one of the things we've realized as we've gotten older and kept on playing games is that some of us really do like that competitive tournament based edge.
That's a good. So I'll kind of just talk out of my mouth here and sort of say what's on my mind now. I haven't really, you posed the question and I'll kind of, I think, okay. no doubt about it, the older you get, I feel the less competitive you get. That's how I've happened. When I was younger, I wanted to, maybe I just had something to prove. Um, I have become less competitive the older I get, but I do still want to win. When it comes to 40K, and this is what I go back to it. The problem with 40K is that the 40K fans now are becoming much more it's becoming a lot more self-selecting. In other words, if you're a 40K person, you you really are competitive because that's sort of what's left. All the casuals are sort of being driven out, right? One, because they now
All the casuals have found more fun games to play.
exactly the casuals now have an opportunity where in the past the casuals would just sort of play 40K and just play it casually. Well, now those casuals are leaving 40K and they're going to other games. So it's sort of a bias that's happening now, right? Where the only people that are left in 40K are the super competitive. And Games Workshop can't, I mean, that's where I'm guessing they're getting a lot of their money. So they can't just say, oh, we're going to make it more casual now. And then, you know, um, I
And the thing is,
think,
they now have real competition. So if they do that and they do drop it, you're going to have a lot of competitive players going, "What's the next best thing?"
well, and this is a question I'll throw back to you, Boz. Have Games Workshop already answered that question? Have they basically said casuals are lost? We're basically just going to go all in on competitive. In other words, they're
It's
saying, yeah,
yeah, it seems like it.
yeah.
It seems like it for all those reasons that you've just stated. It seems like that's definitely the way that they're going. And maybe from their perspective, they think, well, if we lose the casuals to these little independent games, how much money are we really losing? Because that's what it comes down to. It's that bottom line. There are people making these decisions based upon how much money it is going to make or lose for them.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I would I would say this as well. I read some podcasts, and I'd have to look him up, where it talked about how, and I agree with it, that said 40K is a psyop. Like you can find it on there. You can look it up. I forgot who wrote it, but it's basically competitive 40K is a psyop. That Games Workshop love to call this game balanced and competitive, but it's not. And to me, I think that Games Workshop, when they build a new edition, they don't even bother balancing it whatsoever. And by not balancing it, they're able to really actually they're able to make money off that, right? Because they're able to release these constant patches. And I think they sell this stuff, right? Where or they sell don't they have this chapter approved thing? I know they have their app that they charge for. So it's almost like they don't want to have a balanced game because if you have a really awesome balanced game, it'll last 5, 10 years.
Yeah, you don't need to be constantly putting out errata for it.
Yeah.
Like there's errata out for some codexes and for the bloody rule book. There was errata out before the release.
Mhm.
They've already bound and printed and sent them out, and people have paid for them, and they're already out of date. It's
Yeah.
crazy. I don't know that they do charge for those errata. I think you can probably get access to most of them for free, but yeah, certainly don't quote me on that. But yeah, even so, that's terrible game design. We don't need to balance. We're going to let the community balance for us and just put out constant errata.
It
That's
I
crazy.
know the erratas, but where I think they make their money, and this is as I'm guessing, me and you, boss, but we've been outside of the 40K ecosphere for years. But I think they actually charge that monthly fee for their army build because they have an army builder. And I'm guessing
Oh
that's
yeah,
how they
yeah,
make their money, right? Because all that, like, so you have to have a book, but you also have to have the army builder. And from what I
yep. Sign up
understand,
to Warhammer Plus.
yeah, and from what I understand, players have to use a combination of both. It's
Yeah.
like, but it's the way they make money, right? Again, it's
I
like,
mean,
yeah,
as a money making model, they have it down.
yeah, yeah.
As a player wanting to play a game, I run screaming the other way.
Yes, yes. Um, well, we've talked. Okay, so I know we've had our fun, just sort of been goofing off, but I think that we've, had some good conversations. So, Boz, maybe tell you've already brought up a little bit. Maybe tell us some of the games you really either one that you're playing now, or two you're actually excited about. If there's any games you're excited about getting into, and maybe give us some details about why you like those games. And why don't we go why don't we go back and forth? You give a game, and then I'll give a game. We're just so you know, me and Boz, we're just sort of just shooting the breeze here. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah, structure is for chumps. So I'll go first, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with saying one thing and doing another thing. I'm going to preface my first game choice with that statement. So I've been getting into Kill Team.
Oh, yeah.
After all this trash talk that we've been giving GW, I have been getting into Kill Team, and here's a little backstory why. I was recently gifted a whole bunch of Games Workshop books by somebody who was, I don't know if they were just moving house or getting out of the hobby or whatever. But on my local Wargamers Facebook group was, hey, I've got a bunch of books for you to look at home. Who wants them? And so I got, what did I get? I've got them here next to me. I got rule books for fourth, fifth, and sixth and ninth edition 40k,
Hmm.
which just happens to be along with third and second, which I also have rule books for. That happens to be rule books for all the editions that I actually played, which is pretty cool. I got a couple of Marine and Tyranid codexes, and I also got um, the core rules and the compendium and the Octarius kind of lore book for Kill Team 21, which is the previous edition. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I've never played Kill Team before. I know it's their skirmish game. I've gotten these for free. I'll have a look. And yeah, I had a look and it looked pretty interesting. And I kind of went online and was like, okay, so what changed from that Kill Team to current Kill Team, which came out last year? And yeah, the main change is Kill Team 21 has a really cool narrative way to play called Spec Ops, where you have like a mission that takes, 5 or 6 or 7 games to fulfill, and your operatives level up and they're all named and they can have battle scars and die and everything. So that vanished for the new edition, which
Hmm.
sucks.
Really?
Yeah, for some reason they just did away with the best part of the game, in my opinion. But yeah, I've been playing a bit of Kill Team 21, and it's dense because it's a Games Workshop game. Um, there are things that I don't really gel with very much, like command points and stratagems and ploys and that sort of thing. But at the scale that this is, it isn't quite so bad to my kind of wargaming palette. And I've had a couple of games now, just um, solo with an against myself, and yeah, it's not bad. It's different enough from the density that is 40k that I can give it a shot and enjoy it. So yeah, the first game I'm shouting out is Kill Team 21, not Kill Team 24.
Well, and it's funny. I've heard good things about Kill Team. Just like, and I would say this GW probably. I mean, I know they still support Blood Bowl. I'm sure Blood Bowl is still a great game. I've heard good things about Necromunda. Um, and I've never played Kill Team, but I've heard it's a pretty good game. I've
You would
thought
actually really like it. Positioning is so important. It's quite
yeah,
tactical.
I've thought about getting into Kill Team. I just haven't. It's one of those games that this is the thing with me and Kill Team. There are so many other great skirmish games
Yep.
that I don't really feel necessary. I do see, and I would say this person has never read a Kill Team book in my life. I think it is really sad that they got rid of all the battle scars and stuff, and that's
Yeah, and I'll kind of finish off my little blurb on Kill Team by saying I in no way financially support Games Workshop anymore and haven't for a long time. I got the books for free. I got the tokens from the Purple site, which I've 3D printed. I obviously 3D print my minis. So no Games Workshop was given money in the making of this gaming experience.
very nice, very nice. Well, for me, I've mentioned them. So, I'm a one-page rules guy, and I'll still play one-page rules. I like it, but I have been getting. I have to shout out Infinity. That it's old hand. I'm sure, like I said, there's nothing new about it. But for years, I've been seeing Infinity around for years. I mean, 20 years. I mean, I just never had a community that I was able to play it with. But I've always heard good things about it. And then finally, I found a local group that played, and I got into the game, and it's in five. And I don't know anything about the previous editions of Infinity. I've played like five games of it, and every game I've played of Infinity, I absolutely love. It is crunchy, it is complicated, but like you mentioned with Kill Team, because it's a skirmish game, you can be more complicated, right? I think that's the one thing that I don't care too much about the one-page rules skirmish. I feel one-page rules is a great war game. I'm not too fan of their it's too simple for me. But no, Infinity is great. The shooting, it's got kind of the shooting, and the hacking is so important in the game. And with hacking, you need engineers, but you also can bring medics. So actually, in Infinity, it rewards you for bringing a well-rounded team, right? Like I found out very fast you need to have some sort of hacking. And with that, you need an engineer. And with that, do you bring a tag or don't you? So it's very much this warfare that like you do not have to kill your opponents, right? It's a very I love scenario based games that aren't about kill. So yeah, I have to call it Infinity. It's just I've played five games. I'm not playing it competitive, so I'm sure there's some balance issues and whatever. But every game I've played, I felt that it is a balanced game. So yeah, that's my call on here is Infinity.
And you were saying before you found some local people to play with, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, and it's it's like I said, maybe 5 to 10 people consistently. Yeah, and that's all I needed.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. I haven't played any Infinity, but I've seen it played. Kind of few and far between. It's quite kind of niche within a niche, isn't it?
Yet it's not nearly as complicated as you think it is. Once you get the base, it's sort of like there's a very simple base that you build, but honestly, once you play a game or two, you get it. It's not
Yeah.
that bad. And its mechanic system, the reaction system is really nice. Really nice. Yeah, I like it. So that's my call, Boz. What you got for us?
Okay, well, you touched on one page rules before. Of course, their skirmish game is Grimdark Future Firefight, which, as you've said, is just kind of exactly the same as Grimdark Future, but the kind of wounds work differently. It's not a bad skirmish game. It's not a great one either. What I've been enjoying lately from one page rules has been StarQuest, and
Mm-hmm.
that's very much because it is narrative. It's, we're telling a story. We've got five or so characters, and they evolve over time, and the missions are quite fun, and it's kind of never ending waves of enemies depending on how long you hang around for. Yeah, it scratches my itch better than Firefight does
Mm-hmm.
because playing Grimdark Future isn't that large a prospect. You can play it with kind of not all that many minis. And if I'm going to play a skirmish version of it, I think I'd rather have it have a lot more story involved than Firefight does. So yeah, I've had to remake my characters a few times due to certain rules updates and things that have changed how the Army Forge works. I had to completely redo my goblin character because all of a sudden goblins are a separate faction now. Don't get me started. And yeah, so I'm shouting out Grimdark Future StarQuest. If you're looking for a cool story-driven skirmish game, it's a good choice.
And that's good to hear. Like I've heard I've heard good things about StarQuest, and you're right. It feels like they've taken skirmish and they've added some things to it. I know they have skill checks now and here, and I haven't played, but I've watched some reports and everything. Every person I've heard played StarQuest, they love it. So yeah, I think that's a
Yeah,
really solid. Yeah,
it's solid.
I think for me, man, I'm gonna try to keep it to here, but I have to call out. Do you know what I've been hankering for? I've been hankering for some Mage Knight again. You know me, Boz.
Oh,
Yeah, Mage
oh,
Knight. I'm gonna call it out, and that's just because, of course, there's a lot of games, but I've actually I'm gonna call out Mage Knight because I really feel the game is it's one of these games that are super simple. It's similar to one page rules, super simple, but it's the tactical value in Mage Knight is great. And I go back to it. Mage Knight has one of the best activation systems in any war game, I think, where your activations are based on the number of points that you buy. So in a
mm,
400 point game, you always get 4 activations. And that actually has a lot of tactical depth. There's a lot of Mage Knight games you can win by never even killing half of the army. All you have to do is basically force those units to get out of position, and then the like literally the opponent will never be able. They have to spend their action somewhere else. So you can literally have large portions of an army that just sit there because you're forcing an opponent to use their actions. So I always say like Mage Knight. I think a lot of people don't like it. They look at the badly painted clicks, and yeah, I mean repaint them. That's why I always say
yeah,
just repaint them if you want to.
yeah.
But the game itself, I like the lore. I like Mage Knight lore. It's high schoolish, but it's fine. I don't mind the lore. It's not the greatest lore, but I'll call out Mage Knight, and I say this because I really want more and more. I'm gonna probably start, although it'll probably get me no views. I am gonna be doing some Mage Knight battle reports. Um,
Now,
uh,
if I'm not mistaken, way back in the depths of your video catalog, there are some Mage Knight bat reps, aren't there?
yeah, yeah, and they got no views, so I've actually used one page rule with Mage Knight, but no, I think I'm going to be just like, and I'm going to be doing it solo play. You've encouraged me. The reason I'm doing this,
Yeah,
boss, is because you talk about solo play, and I really want to play some solo Mage Knight again. So yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah. How about one more, boss? We'll go one more, and then
All right, one more. That's easy. I'm gonna shout out Mystic Space by Nordic Weasel Games. It's his brand new IP, and the setting is really cool. They're like almost humans, but not quite humans. They're like us, but turned up to 11. And the setting isn't grimdark. It's kind of, yes, we're in conflict, but it's not like the galaxy's in flames and there's no way out, and this is what everything is forever. It's a bit more hopeful, which I kind of dig because grimdark is all well and good, but there are other kind of fun settings to play in as well. I think the rule set is quite solid. I really enjoy a lot of Nordic Weasel games, and Ivan's game design is more often than not really rock solid. This has a good kind of D10 system. It's got a good morale system. Decisions matter. It's tactical, and again, you don't have that many models to kind of keep track of. You shouldn't need to use tokens other than keeping track of wounds. And yeah, I've got a couple of videos over on my channel that I'll shamelessly plug here
Mhm.
that go into a lot more kind of depth of why this is such a cool game and why you should jump on it and give it a go. It's currently in public alpha, I think. It isn't even in beta yet, so there's more of it kind of coming. And another thing that I really think is cool about it is that it's designed to be an ongoing game. So it's currently set in the year, whatever, I think of the year 3000 or something, to, in conjunction to this race's calendar. And the idea is that over time and over more releases, the actual game will move forwards into not just like different years, but different eras. So different eras will have different units and things like that. So you could, in a couple of years' time, decide you want to play a game in the year 3000 era, and these are some units that you won't be able to take because they weren't around yet. And ditto for later eras, you can have more advanced units that you can take, and you can take some of the older ones, but they'll be absolutely obsolete. I just think that's a really cool thing to add into game design. And yeah, I've played a handful of games of it, and it holds up pretty well. And yeah, Mystic Space by Nordic Weasel Games, give it a go.
Now, is that going to be a similar to a more of a solo focus, like kind of 5 parsecs, or is it
So actually, this one is designed to be a proper two-player game.
okay? Interesting.
It
Interesting.
hasn't got any sort of campaign system yet. Um, that is one of the things that is kind of coming in later releases and things like that. But yeah, it's just a straight up two-player, or you could play two teams of two, I suppose. Just an honest to goodness two-player skirmish game that just is a different take on it.
I like it. Yeah, I've looked into it, and from what I've seen so far, it looks really cool. Looks really cool. Um, I'm gonna finish off with Bushido. There's a couple of local guys that started playing the game, and it's a smaller skirmish game. I think it runs like around 5 or 6 models, but the models are a little more crunchy. So the game is more crunchy, but it's also a little bit of a smaller. A few things I like about Bushido. Now, I'm not a big Japanese guy, um, but I can get into it. It's like from what I've followed the lore, and the lore's cool. Just kind of your standard Japanese lore. With I'm playing the one of the things that sort of got me into Bushido was the same thing with Infinity. I've really enjoyed painting more realistic humans. Um, Bushido, like I just picked the prefecture of Ryu, which is it's actually just your standard samurai faction. But I think that's something I really like the models, and I really like between Infinity and Bushido. I really like just painting more realistic models that aren't sort of a little. And there's nothing wrong with it, right? With like the GW sort of eccentric poses and space. There's nothing wrong with that. But I like the difference in painting. I really like so the models for Bushido, I don't think they're anything crazy, but this just really liked it. The gameplay I've watched it has a pretty good competitive edge to it, where you are like it feels, from what I understood, relatively balanced. It's pretty crunchy, but you're playing on a smaller number of units. So yeah, I don't think that Bushido is doing anything amazing other than it's just I've really liked the models. I've listened to some lore. The lore is cool. I mean, it's nothing amazing, but it's cool. And so yeah, I'll call it Bushido. Really easy to get into. It's sort of that 5 to, I mean, not even 10. So yeah, I think for me, I've really been enjoying painting these humanesque samurais.
Yeah,
It's
more kind
similar
of
to
true
with you.
scale.
Yeah, it's similar to you. I'm getting into that when you play HDF, you play sort of these humans versus these supernaturals. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's very very much my jam.
yeah, yeah. Well, boss, I would love to keep you on forever and ever, and we will definitely have you back on. Please go check out Boss's channel, Any Which War Game. I'll post it in the description. Boss, thanks again for coming on. Always a joy and privilege to talk to you. Is there anything else you want to sort of sign out with? Anything to cover?
Just that it's always, yeah, this is kind of par for the course for chats that Dan and I have, kind of on mic or not. We just enjoy talking about the things that we enjoy doing, and it's always a pleasure, mate. I've got a video coming out in the next couple of days talking about solo gaming on my channel. So, yeah, if listening to me yammer about solo gaming seems like something you want to do, then yeah, come and check it out. It'll be dropped by the start of next week, I suppose.
Nice, nice. Well, we'll definitely be talking again, boss. Thanks again.
Always a pleasure.